So we are so fortunate that we have His Grace Angiramuni Prabhu with us today. You will be surprised to know that he is the Bhakti-vriksha director and the congregational minister for Russia, and under him there are around 700 Bhakti-vrikshas approximately in and around Russia. Is that right, Prabhuji?
Yes, we try to help develop Bhakti-vriksha in Russia and the countries of former Soviet Union, like Ukraine, Belarus, Kazakhstan and other Middle Asia places. Also help in Baltic countries and to Russian Bhakti-vriksha in Russian communities in some European countries, like that.
So let me begin with a personal question. We would like to know what is your material qualification and what have you been doing in the material life to sustain yourself?
Before coming to Krishna consciousness, I was student in Moscow in the field of cybernetics, let's say computer science. And I was graduated from the institute, and just the same year, it was 1987, I met Krishna conscious devotees in Moscow, and I was attracted to join this movement, although it was underground that time. It was not completely opened. So for first 3 years I was working in one scientific institute, and then I left my job in 1991, and I just began to travel in Russia and preach Krishna consciousness. That time I was brahmachari until 1996, and then I married and came back to Moscow. And from 1996, I mainly was involved in this field of congregational preaching. So during all these years, I never had any, how to say, material job. All my activity was connected with preaching, book publishing, newspapers, magazines, and I could maintain myself by this publishing activity.
Well, so let me begin with the questions pertaining to Bhakti-vriksha. It is amazing to know that you have created so many Bhakti-vriksha groups all around Russia. Please let us know how long have you been associated with Bhakti-vriksha and where does the history begin? How did you come in contact with Bhakti-vriksha and how did you start?
First of all, it's not me who created all these Bhakti-vriksha groups in all the cities of Russia and CIS. There are so many inspired devotees who are doing all this. I'm just helping as much as I can. My first contact with the idea of Bhakti-vriksha was in 1995. Before I was like traveling preacher with some group of devotees who were traveling mainly in Siberia, were organizing some festivals, preaching programs, tried to open temples, brahmachari ashramas. And what I saw during this year is that although we were doing a lot of preaching, but not many people could join the movement and could stay in our small ashramas. And I saw that even many devotees who was living in these brahmachari ashramas was not so happy and successful in their spiritual life. Therefore, I started to think what are the ways to organizing our movement in a more effective way. And just around this year, 1995, that time I was appointed Prabhupada Centennial Coordinator for CIS, and many materials started to come to me as a coordinator, and also materials which were published by Congregational Ministry with the inspiration of Srila Jayapataka Maharaj. And I was very much attracted by these materials because in them I saw the light of hope. I saw the idea how we can make our movement really big and strong and take care of all the devotees and not only of those who are living in the temples. So therefore I decided that when this program of Prabhupada Centennial will be finished, then I would like to have my next service as a Namahata coordinator or congregational minister, and I was appointed as such with the blessings of Srila Japataka Maharaj. So from 96, 97, I started to do service practically completely in this area of congregational preaching.
Amazing. So Prabhuji, in the beginning, how many groups did you start with, and what were the challenges, and what was the experience?
So my first attempt to start Bhakti-vriksha was just in 1996. After Srila Japataka Maharaj first time came to Russia, it was July 96, he came for All Russia Vaishnava Festival, which was held near Moscow, and he made a presentation of Bhakti-vriksha program. And during that presentation, and me and some other devotees in Russia, they understood, yes, this is the future, we should try that. So in different cities, devotees started to try this Bhakti-vriksha approach, and also I started at least one group in Moscow, because before that there was no any congregational preaching in Moscow. All activity was concentrated in the temple. In Brahmachari were doing a lot of Sankirtana at that time, but there was not much attention to congregation. So practically I created the first congregational group in 96. And of course it was not 100% Bhakti-vriksha in modern sense, because we didn't have modules, didn't have any training materials. We just studied Bhagavad Gita. But I had this idea that we should multiply group after some time and should train in a systematic way our congregational members. So just in the yard of the temple I was meeting some devotees and inviting them to such program. It was my first, we may say, Bhakti-vriksha group. And after some time, few other devotees in Moscow also started to do something in this direction, and in some other cities in Russia also some devotees started to try to do these Bhakti-vrikshas. That time we called it Namahatas. We didn't saw much difference, so we called it Namahata, but we had the idea that group should be multiplied and new leaders should come out of these groups. So after a couple of years we had about 15 groups in Moscow in 98. 98 was a difficult year for Russian Yatra because Harikesh Swami left the movement this year. It was a heavy time for Russia. So after that some leaders they went away, some groups also were closed, but still all the years, the end of 90s and the beginning of 2000 years, we had always 10-15 such groups in Moscow, which we can call now like half Namahata, half Bhakti-vriksha. That means that they were done in Bhakti-vriksha style. They were group with close relationships, with some kind of care, with interactive way of studying Bhagavad Gita. But what was absent in those years, the exact way of multiplicating the groups. Usually such groups was continued for 3, 4, 5 years, and it was very difficult to multiply the groups. Because the group members, they were accustomed to be part of these groups, and they didn't want to multiply. So very rare some new groups were opened, some old groups was closed, so approximately 10-15 groups we had in Moscow, and in some other places in Russia also there were 5, 6, 7 groups. But as I told, they were not 100% Bhakti-vrikshas. They had some aspects of Bhakti-vriksha. And then the situation changed when in 2006 I met Mataji Prabhupadmini in Mayapur here during the festival. We already knew each other, already was reading her book, Free to Preach. And even once in 2002, Mataji Prabhupadmini and Vijayanath Gopal Prabhu, they came to Moscow. But at that time the modules was not ready yet. So they gave some seminar, but it doesn't change much. But in 2006, she introduced me to modules, and she told me, if you will use our modules, then you will get success. Of course, I was a little skeptical after 10 years of efforts, and I told her, okay, I will go through these modules, and if I would see that they are applicable in Russia, then we'll translate them, and then you please come and train us how to use these modules. So it was our agreement. And then I have read these modules. I saw that nothing specially Indian was not there. It was just the study of Bhagavad Gita mainly. Therefore, with few other Bhakti-vriksha leaders in Moscow, we decided to try to use these modules. We translated them, and in January 2007, Mataji Prem Padmini came to Moscow and gave a seminar on Bhakti-vriksha, and practically from this point I would count the history of real Bhakti-vriksha in Russia.
Okay.
Then they started to regularly visit with Vijay Gopal Prabhu. Together with them we was visiting different cities in Russia. And the difference also was that in 2007 I started to lead Bhakti-vriksha group myself together with my wife. Because in previous 10 years, after 1998, I did not lead Bhakti-vriksha myself. I was like coordinator. Okay. So I tried to inspire devotees, but I did not do Bhakti-vriksha myself. So it was proper decision to start group ourselves, because finally our group was very successful. Because about 10 new Bhakti-vriksha leaders came out of this group.
Amazing.
Yeah, it may be the best result in the world. Yeah. Of course, we really meditated on that. We tried to invite some potential devotees to this group. It was more like startup group.
Okay.
Although mainly members were new devotees, those who were 1-2 years in Krishna consciousness, but also we invited some more experienced devotees who potentially could be Bhakti-vriksha leaders. So finally about 10 new leaders came out of our group. After we multiplied it in 2009. And then few more Bhakti-vriksha groups was opened in Moscow. So in 2009 we have about 20-25 Bhakti-vriksha groups in Moscow. And then it started to grow. We saw that it really works, because these new devotees who were members of our group, they started their own groups as Bhakti-vriksha leaders, and they also got success. Probably the main reason for success was that we got new devotees to our group, and they had no any other experience in Krishna consciousness except of Bhakti-vriksha. All their life mainly was inside Bhakti-vriksha, so it was quite natural for them that we also will do the same thing. Because we were constantly telling them that you will also be Bhakti-vriksha leaders. So most of them accepted this idea. Therefore, almost all of them finally became Bhakti-vriksha leaders sooner or later. Some just after we finish our group, some after 1 year, some after 2 years. Some even now try to start their own groups after 5 years. But practically all the members of our group was in this mood that we also should start our Bhakti-vriksha groups. So that was success. And then it started to grow because they successfully finished their groups and multiplied their groups, and we got the second generation of leaders, then the third generation. So now we have chakras and almost Maha chakras. In Moscow, it's 3-4 generation of leaders came during these years. So altogether now we have about 125 Bhakti-vriksha groups in Moscow. We count not only these first level Bhakti-vrikshas, which follow these 64 weeks, but also groups for leaders. We also call them Bhakti-vriksha second and third level, because it's important to have such groups specially designed for leaders, and also a few zero-level groups which prepare new people for Bhakti-vriksha. So altogether about 125 groups. And also during last 5 years, because we got some success and some good experience in Moscow, practically in all the cities in Russia, devotees started to do Bhakti-vriksha, and also in many places in CIS, and as I said, even outside of former Soviet Union, in Europe and some other places, Russian-speaking Bhakti-vrikshas was started. So that zone which I try to coordinate has about 700 Bhakti-vrikshas now. And the most important thing is that it continues to grow. It really grows step by step. So our plan is that to the end of this year we will have not less than 150 Bhakti-vrikshas in Moscow. To the end of next year probably 200. So in 2020 or 22, I hope we'll have 1,008 Bhakti-vriksha groups in Moscow. So that's our plan. It's quite realistic because new people join Krishna consciousness in Russia. It's quite stable. Krishna sends more and more people. So the only question is how to train more and more Bhakti-vriksha leaders. And that is our main attempts now, to establish the system of training and taking care of the Bhakti-vriksha leaders. So if we will be successful in that, then it will continue to grow. There are no doubt in that.
This is absolutely amazing and mesmerizing. I was feeling as if I am going through a fairy tale. You know, it's unbelievable actually. You have crossed even Bhaktivinoda Thakur because he had 500 groups and you have at present 700 groups and you're trying to create 1008 groups. So you're really blessed.
But we follow the example of Vijayanagar Mataji Prabhupada because they also did not stop. In the first community in Amman, they now have about 300 Bhakti-vriksha groups, and now they mainly preach in Bangalore. We just recently were in Bangalore with our group from Moscow, and they have very serious plans how to have 10,000 Bhakti-vriksha groups in Bangalore up to the year 2020. Much more than we can have in Moscow. Of course, a cultural situation in Bangalore is much more favorable for Krishna consciousness than in Russia, therefore it's more realistic there. But I am very much inspired by their plans and their determination that Bhakti-vriksha can grow unlimitedly. So their vision is that in 2020 they will have about 10,000 Bhakti-vriksha groups. It will be about 100,000 devotees. It's about 1% of the population of the Bangalore. So it's the beginning of the golden age. So we also meditate on these things for Russia, but probably it will not be so soon. Maybe after 15, 20 years we can reach in Russian cities, something like that. At least this is our hope and our meditation. But we feel very much that Lord Chaitanya is, besides this program, he's helping and maintaining. Otherwise it would not be possible. It's not possible for anyone. For any person, even Lord Chaitanya would not help. So what I like in Bhakti-vriksha the most, that when you do it, you constantly feel the presence of this, golden arm of Lord Chaitanya, which is arranging everything, is sending necessary people and some ideas how to develop the preaching. For example, preaching in Moscow also grown up very much in the last few years. Now we have such program as Goloka Fest. Maybe you heard about this. It's big festivals in big halls for general public. So now in Moscow, in such festivals, we have 5,000-6,000 people who are coming, and approximately half of them are devotees and half of them are new people, those who came for the first time to the Vaishnava festival. And just at such festivals, we collect contacts of these new people and invite them to Bhakti-vrikshas. So at the last festival, 250 contacts was collected just at one program. So Krishna is giving very good opportunities for preaching now. So we should just use them.
I would like to switch over to some technical questions of Bhakti-vriksha. Can you please describe how is the relationship between the devotees or the preachers within the groups or even between the groups?
That is our main experience in Bhakti-vriksha, that it creates very warm family relationships between devotees. It was so even in 90s when we had first attempts of Bhakti-vriksha, even those times when Bhakti-vriksha did not grow so much, still they had this warm atmosphere of close relationships. But now when we have this more strict Bhakti-vriksha, it grow even more. So it really creates a family. All our Bhakti-vriksha members from our initial group, which me and my wife was leading, they actually are like our family members, like our sons and daughters mainly, because they were mainly young. So they really like our children. And we maintain these connections. Some of them are now sector leaders, chakra leaders in Moscow. Some went to some other cities and continue to do Bhakti-vriksha there. And even some went to some other countries and continue to lead Bhakti-vriksha there. But still we have these close relationships. And I see it practically in all the groups, at least in the good Bhakti-vriksha groups, that this warm atmosphere is maintaining there, definitely.
What is the secret of this harmony between the groups or the members?
This is the mood of Bhakti-vriksha which we should develop if we really want to do Bhakti-vriksha. Because Bhakti-vriksha means that we are interested in people, and not just perform the programs, or not just teach the philosophy. We are really interested in people, in their life, and we really want to help them. So the program, Bhakti-vriksha program itself, it's interactive. It has icebreaker, it has interactive discussion of philosophy and preaching. And then, of course, as much as possible, we should try to communicate with group members during the week, come to their homes, invite to our places, and go together to different places. And all this really develops these relationships. So it's a question of the mood. If we got this Bhakti-vriksha mood, then it will be naturally, that atmosphere will naturally grow. Therefore, usually Bhakti-vriksha comes from Bhakti-vriksha. It's difficult to start first Bhakti-vriksha in the city. But for devotees who were already members of Bhakti-vriksha, it's quite easy to start their own Bhakti-vriksha and do it in a proper mood.
Well, this is very important. So, my next question is, what is the mood of leadership in Bhakti-vriksha? I mean, how are the leaders in Bhakti-vriksha?
Yes, we call the Bhakti-vriksha leader, we call him servant leader. It's very important. So Bhakti-vriksha doesn't create the type of leaders who try to dominate on the members, who try to be in a more high position than them. Because the way of Bhakti-vriksha is different. The way of Bhakti-vriksha is developing friendly relationships. And the main way of getting success for Bhakti-vriksha leader is to be really humble and try to serve the members. That is the main secret of success. That is what we are teaching our Bhakti-vriksha leaders. Because they should not follow you. They are not brahmacharis in the temple who should follow discipline, otherwise they will be thrown from the temple. These are many grihastas, so people who are completely independent in a social sense from ISKCON. So the only way to make them follow is our good relationship with them, is our mood of service. Then in response they also want to do something, to follow our advices, and finally also to become Bhakti-vriksha leaders.
How do you think, Prabhuji, we can convince others to take up Bhakti-vriksha preaching? Because in many parts of the world, still there are so many who are reluctant to take up Bhakti-vriksha. They imagine things for Bhakti-vriksha. So how would you rectify that?
I think only by our example. Because we cannot just theoretically preach to people because they have some other ideas. So it will be just some theoretical debates, which actually was there in some previous years when Bhakti-vriksha was not so much established. Even in Moscow, before Bhakti-vriksha became strong, I often had some theoretical disputes with some other Moscow leaders. Is Bhakti-vriksha good for Russia or not? So, but now Bhakti-vriksha is practically accepted because everyone can see success. They see that Bhakti-vriksha really produce inspired devotees who wants to do service, even do some service in the temple, at the festivals in the community. And Bhakti-vriksha devotees they actively take part in book distribution during Prabhupada marathons and in Harinamas. Now in Moscow we have many Harinama groups, mainly from Bhakti-vriksha. And also these big festivals like Galoka Fests, 90% of service during these festivals is done by Bhakti-vriksha members. So other leaders can see it, therefore they have more and more positive relation to Bhakti-vriksha in Russia. So in other places, as I told, when we got some success in Moscow, then we felt more and more interest from other cities, even from other countries. So now it's more or less standard thing in CIS. So probably the other parts of the world will be the same. If the leaders will see these positive examples, they will be more and more interested. Yes, our experience was that the more strictly we follow the method of Bhakti-vriksha, even in details like it is done in the modules by Vijay and Prem Padmini, the better success we had. Although theoretically you may use different training materials in Bhakti-vriksha, but I do not know the examples of really successful Bhakti-vriksha development which don't use these models. At least for now, these models are standard materials for Bhakti-vriksha. And not only models, but that mood, that system which is generally was described in Bhakti-vriksha manual by Srila Prabhupada Maharaj, and in detail were presented by Vijay Prabhu and Shmataji Prem Padmini. So it's true, the more strictly we try to follow, the better results we have.
Is Bhakti-vriksha an idea of a particular group, or is it in compliance with the methodology designed by our past acharyas?
My vision is that Bhakti-vriksha is an ideal system for developing Vaishnava communities. Anyway, to have a real organized Vaishnava community, you should have the system of spiritual groups. You cannot deal just with the crowd of congregation. You cannot train them, you cannot take care of them, you cannot engage them in the service if you do not have groups. So, anyway, you need to have groups. So, Bhakti-vriksha just develops the system of groups. And Bhakti-vriksha concentrates on creating more and more leaders. And we really need many, many leaders for our movement. That was the main desire of Srila Prabhupada. You can read in so many places in Srila Prabhupada's books and his conversations and lectures that he was telling that everyone should preach in our movement, everyone should become a guru. We need so many spiritual leaders, spiritual warriors to establish Lord Chaitanya missions. Once I heard Srila Prabhupada told that we need 10 million gurus for our movement. So how we can produce 10 million gurus? Just Bhakti-vriksha is developed for that. At least, Shiksha gurus, those devotees who can train other devotees in the Vaishnava communities. So in my understanding, Bhakti-vriksha is just the real implementation or realization of Srila Prabhupada's desire about developing Vaishnava communities in ISKCON. Because of course in the beginning stages of the movement, mainly devotees were living in the temples, they were brahmacharis, but Srila Prabhupada had the clear vision that it will not be for a long time like that ISKCON will be much broader than just ashramas and just brahmacharis. And he actually gave this task to the next generation of leaders, how to develop this system of organizing good Vaishnava communities. So that is our answer to Srila Prabhupada's call to us. And Srila Jabrak Maharaj, who developed this program, he was doing this as an official congregational minister for ISKCON. So he was requested by GBC to develop such some program which helps to develop Vaishnava communities. So he was authorized to develop such a system by the whole ISKCON. And from other side, he was following the ideas of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and what was Lord Nityananda doing in Bengal in 16th century. So in that sense, it has very deep roots in our Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. But not only here, because Christians, they have system like that, they have cell churches, and it's quite natural, it's quite obvious. Because even in the army, you also should have the structure. You should have some small groups, bigger groups, you should have some hierarchy of the leaders of different levels. So it's just the same idea. If we want really to make our society as a spiritual army, we need such a system of structure for Vaishnava communities. If we do not want just deal with crowd of congregation who are coming to our temples and then come home and we do not see them again, if we really want to have an organized society which can make a spiritual revolution in the modern society, you need to develop this approach, and Bhakti-vriksha is very successful in that, because Bhakti-vriksha makes this spiritual army out of congregation. Not only brahmacharis, not only professional preachers, but it makes our spiritual army many times bigger and stronger because of this approach.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for such a wonderful explanation of our hierarchy. Well, so I would like to know, how fast do the members adapt to our culture while undergoing Bhakti-vriksha training? What is your experience in Russia?
You see, we do not stress so much the external features of the culture, like dress and hair style and all these things, because it's not the most important, and for Russia it's not the, it's not the best way to present Krishna consciousness from external point of view. So in Bhakti-vriksha we deal with basics, with understanding the philosophy and with chanting. So that is accepted very nicely. Mainly Russian people, they are intelligent and many of them have spiritual interests. And usually when they come to Bhakti-vriksha, they are not completely new, they already heard something before coming, because they do not come to Bhakti-vriksha just from the street. No, usually in Russia they already was listening for some time to some lectures about Vedic philosophy, Vedic culture, because there are many such lectures now you can find in the internet in Russia. So these ideas are spread quite widely in Russia now. So people who are coming, they already have this deep interest in the philosophy and spiritual life. So it's not so difficult to give them understanding of the philosophy and make them to chant. And step by step they come to 16 rounds. Some of them quite quickly are coming. In 1 year or even some of them in few months may reach 16 rounds. Also in Russia it's not so difficult, by Krishna's mercy, to make people to follow regulative principles. Even Mataji Prem Padmini once said that it's even easier than in India. For example, in India, people will not be so quick to stop taking tea, or in some places to eat fish. But in Russia, it's quite easy. Russian people are quite austere by their nature, so if they accept something, they easily can reject many things. So young people, boys and girls, they accept these vows after a few months, sometimes after 1 year, for principles even, were surprised. Maybe they will not follow for the whole life, some difficulties may be there, of course, in their future life, but they quite ready to accept these things, like regulative principles and chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, understanding the philosophy, and the idea of preaching also. Because this idea of helping other people, of spreading the knowledge, of making kind of spiritual revolution, they are quite natural for Russian people. So it's not so difficult. as I said, all other cultural aspects like doing puja, arati, we do not stress so much. Those who are interested, they may accept it also, step by step.
How is the mood of a devotee towards the temple services who has undertaken Bhakti-vriksha?
Yes, it's quite a typical situation that Bhakti-vriksha members, they do some service in the temple, mainly on Sunday programs, and like speaking with guests and helping in cooking or distributing prasadam. But there are usually some group members who are more inclined to deity worship, so they may do some such type of service in the temple also. So yes, generally we try to connect Bhakti-vrikshas with the service in the temple. The only thing that we should not overburden Bhakti-vriksha members with such service, because the main for Bhakti-vriksha is still the training and developing relationships. If they would have too much service, they will have less possibility to study and to develop relationships. So I consider that temple service is just part of the education for congregational members, part of the culture.
Very well explained, Prabhuji. Are there any limitations in terms of gender or age or material qualification or the social status of the member of Bhakti-vriksha? What is your experience?
Of course, we invite to Bhakti-vriksha all the people whom we can contact. So there are no any limitations. Of course, men and women and young and old, all may come to Bhakti-vriksha. But still the main, population of Bhakti-vrikshas in Russia are more young people. In general, from 20 till 30, like it was in Srila Prabhupada's time. Because for young people it's easier to adopt a new lifestyle, to change their life, and they naturally are more active in preaching, and they are more easily accept this role of Bhakti-vriksha leaders. So mainly our Bhakti-vriksha leaders in Russia, they are in this age, from 25 and till 30. But there are of course other examples also.
How effective are the Siksha levels and what are the benefits?
The Shiksha system is a very important part of the Bhakti-vriksha system as a whole, because it helps Bhakti-vriksha members to grow step by step. Because if you would tell new devotees that you should chant 16 rounds, it's the only way to be a devotee and follow 4 principles, then many of them will be disappointed. They will have the feeling that, oh, that means I will not be a devotee. I cannot be a devotee. So they will be disappointed. So Shiksha is a very important approach, like small steps by which we can go high. So we will try to follow this system. We are not so strict in this system in the sense that we allow to accept any vows, not only 1 round, 4 rounds, 8 rounds. If somebody wants to accept a vow for 6 rounds or 10 rounds, they also can do this. So the main thing is the mood. The mood is that we inspire devotees to do some small steps higher and higher. We inspire them, we help them, we are having these Shiksha ceremonies when we give blessings for them. These blessings are very important. People are a little afraid of vows, of accepting vows, but when we tell them that you will have blessings of all the devotees, then they are ready to accept vows during Vyuha programs and festivals. So it's a very important part of Bhakti-vriksha, and we always teach Bhakti-vriksha leaders that they should follow this Shiksha system.
What is your opinion about the structure of Bhakti-vriksha in terms of hierarchy? How do you find the hierarchy, the Bhakti-vriksha director, the supervising preacher, circle servants, sector servants, servant leaders? So what is your opinion about the structure?
So this structure which was, as much as I know, proposed by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, is very important for Bhakti-vriksha development because it means care. Because every Bhakti-vriksha leader should, first of all, have care from some more experienced devotees. And also he should be accountable, because we should check what is happening in Bhakti-vrikshas, because they represent ISKCON and Srila Prabhupada. So somehow we should check the quality. So it's the most natural way to do it through the structure of sectors, chakras, maha chakras, and so on, so on. It's practically the ideal system. Again, like in material army, they have the same approach. Otherwise, how army can work with such structure and hierarchy. And we see that devotees, they are quite quickly they grow, because 1.5 year Bhakti-vriksha multiplies. So quite quickly they grow to the higher levels, like sector leaders, chakra leaders. Sometimes it's a little difficult for young devotees to get such positions, but we always tell them that it means just that you should become more humble. Because in Bhakti-vriksha hierarchy, the higher position you have, the more humble you should be. Otherwise it just will not work, because people will not follow you if they will not see your good qualities. So what I like in Bhakti-vriksha so much is that it really pushes devotees to develop good Vaishnava qualities. Otherwise, if you're just congregational member, you can visit temples for many years, but you will not really develop the qualities. But if you're doing service in the Bhakti-vriksha structure, you should develop these qualities, otherwise you will not be successful. So that's very good.
I think this was one of the most important points that you have made in favor of Bhakti-vriksha. How effective is Bhakti-vriksha in bringing out a preacher from a devotee?
So that is just what Bhakti-vriksha is about. It's the main feature of Bhakti-vriksha, that we teach Bhakti-vriksha members to preach. Just from the beginning, just from the first weeks. In models we have these preaching parts, and if we follow strictly, then from the beginning we tell people that you should preach. And as I told, it's more or less natural, at least for intelligent people. It's a natural idea that if you got some knowledge, you should spread this knowledge. If it's something good, you should not keep it just for yourself. People in Russia, they are a little afraid of religious preaching, because they have some bad experience with some Christian groups who are too pushy in their preaching. So usually we explain to the new devotees that it's not a question of religious preaching, we're just spreading the knowledge and give people freedom, accept or not accept. That is very important to explain new devotees, that they should behave properly with their relatives, with their friends, not to spoil relationships. They should tell them about their new knowledge and their new lifestyle, but they should not press them to follow. So if these new devotees are doing like that, then are effective. And they can bring more and more people to Bhakti-vriksha. And of course, the main result of this training preachers is when Bhakti-vriksha members become Bhakti-vriksha leaders. It's the main preaching responsibility. Of course, they are doing other types of preaching. Usually, as I told, Bhakti-vriksha members, they are doing Sankirtan of some kind, and they take part in Harinamas and organizing some festivals. So there are different types of preaching. But of course, the main result is when a devotee become Bhakti-vriksha leaders himself. And if he is doing so, then it really means that he takes serious part in this preaching mission of Srila Prabhupada. And devotees has a taste. So the main thing in Bhakti-vriksha to give this taste. And when devotees they got this taste of preaching, they will want to feel it again and again. Therefore, they are ready to accept this role of Bhakti-vriksha leader, because they will give them possibility to feel, to enjoy this taste for the whole life. So that is our approach, how we inspire them to become Bhakti-vriksha leaders. We tell them that this is the most pleasurable part of Krishna consciousness, when you feel this taste of preaching Lord Chaitanya's mission.
I would like to switch over to some personal questions now. What was the biggest personal challenge for you to take up the leadership in Bhakti-vriksha preaching?
As I told you in the beginning, it was a natural decision for me, because after some years of preaching in Russia in 90s, I saw that the system is not complete, that we are preaching very widely, but we do not give enough opportunities for people to join and become part of the movement and be comfortable, not only be brahmacharis and ashramas. So for me it was natural results of my my thinking about the future of this movement, how to make it really successful, and what I can do to this movement. I was very much inspired with these ideas of Jayapataka Maharaj, which I have read in these issues of ISKCON congregational preaching journals, which I got in 90s. So it was for me just a natural way how to use myself in this movement. So it was not difficult for me to accept this role, but it took enough time to get real results. As I told at the beginning, it takes almost 12 years from the point when we start our first attempts to do Bhakti-vriksha and when we got some real results. Yes, it took more than 12 years. So that means it was necessary to have some tolerance to continue year by year. So, but finally it brings some results.
Kindly share at least one story or an anecdote of a real transformation that happened in one of your Bhakti-vriksha members.
Of course, there are many examples. Practically each story of every devotee is a story of transformation. But of course, one example I have, which is very interesting, which is very clear to us. When we have our first Bhakti-vriksha group, which we led together with my wife, there was one girl who was a member of our group. We saw that she was interested once she came to one of our first programs. Then for 1 year we lost her, but after 1 year we again find her and started to invite her again. So she was 19 years old, even less. When we first met her, she was 16. And then when she started to come regularly, she was 17, 18. And she was quite sincere. She liked Krishna consciousness, but of course her lifestyle was completely opposite to Krishna consciousness. She was living in a little hippie way. She was living with her boyfriend. So I would say they violated all the regulative principles. They were using drugs, did not sleep at nights, and so on, so on. So she tried to bring her boyfriend also to Krishna consciousness. He was not against, but he was not serious as a devotee. But she was sincere, although externally her dress, her appearance was not completely as should be for devotee. It was quite funny appearance. But after some time, real changes came to her life. She left finally her boyfriend. After that, she became very serious. She started to chant 16 rounds. She started strictly follow all the regulative principles, started to wear sari, and became like a real Vaishnavi girl. And at the end, she became first Bhakti-vriksha leader in our group. She still was 19 years old at that time, Our group was not finished yet. We did not finish all the 5 modules, but because more and more new people were coming, we decided that we should start a new branch. So she still was visiting our group, but on another day of the week she started her own new group.
Amazing.
Yes, we were helping her, but still she was successful. She has so much enthusiasm because she got so much help from us in her life that she wanted also to do something like that. She was very active. She was inviting people in the temple, from the temple, with some strange people. She was inviting because she had so much enthusiasm. And finally, her group was successful. After 2 years, she multiplied her group. And what was very interesting that she really tried to take care of the members of her group. Some of the members of her group, they were twice and even 3 times more older than her. Some were family people, and she tried to help these people to solve their family problems, although she was not married at that time. But she really tried to help them, and he requested me and my wife to help. So she really saved some families in her Bhakti-vriksha. And then in the age of 21 she became a sector leader. And Mataji Prabhupada told that probably she is the most young sector leader in the world. And after 1.5 years she became a chakra leader.
Really?
At 22, and probably she was the youngest chakra leader in the world. And then she chose Japadaka Maharaj as her guru. She got initiation from him. And when she was coming to Mayapur, he allowing her to sit in his darshans. It was quite amazing. For many hours, he allows her to sit, and when his Indian Grihastka couples, disciples, were coming to the room, he was showing them this girl. He was telling, "Are you a chakra leader?" But she is a chakra leader. So he was using her example. So finally she was married with one disciple of Japadaka Maharaj from Latin America.
Okay.
Angiramuni Prabhu. And her name is Primati Chitra.
Oh,
yes.
wife of Manohar Prabhu.
Yes. So now she is living in Buenos Aires.
Oh, really?
So practically Krishna gave them responsibility to develop Bhakti-vriksha in Argentina.
Amazing.
Yeah, but initially she was this young girl from our group.
Amazing.
So it's quite an interesting example.
That's an amazing example and a wonderful story of transformation. So I'm inspired to ask you one more question. Kindly give some examples of material spiritual help which your group members derived from Bhakti-vriksha groups.
Of course, there are also so many examples. All the devotees, they derive the spiritual help from the group leaders. But also there are many examples of some material help, because usually Bhakti-vriksha leaders are in the mood to help also in some material aspects of the life of the group members. One maybe most bright example which I remember in one of our Bhakti-vriksha groups in Moscow was with one of the devotees. He was initiated devotee actually, who was not so much successful in Krishna consciousness for some years. And he also didn't have a good job. He was quite poor, and because of some situations in his life, he did not have teeth. Few teeth was absent, and therefore he never smiled. So I remember that members of this Bhakti-vriksha, they collected money to make him to put new teeth. So they collected 70,000 rubles. It's quite a big sum, at about $2,000.
Oh,
you see.
amazing.
Yeah, so with the efforts of the whole group, they collected this sum and gave to him. He made new teeth, and then he started to smile. And after a few months, he was married.
Amazing, this is unbelievable.
So just one example.
Really. That is really, really amazing and very humorous, but very, very encouraging example. Amazing. I'm so delighted and so much thankful to you that you have kindly spent so much time and so much valuable time, and you come and join with us. I'm sure definitely all over the world, whoever will watch this video will get so much inspiration to take up Bhakti-vriksha preaching. And as Prabhupada used to say, Phalena parichayate, your result is the example, the best example. You have 700 Bhakti-vriksha groups, and that is the best example of saying Bhakti-vriksha is really good system for ISKCON. Thank you so much, and we humbly offer our obeisances to you. Thank you for joining. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you for your kind attention, and I hope that there will be some use of this interview. And I would say that this is just beginning. My feeling is that will be much more Bhakti-vrikshas in Russia and CIS and in many other countries. Bhakti-vriksha will be started soon. So what I would request from all the devotees, just the blessings. Because my feeling is we're just at the beginning point of Bhakti-vriksha development. So personally I need a lot of your blessings to continue my activity and to do something real for Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.